That's a good way to solve that problem. That's a good solution. I like that. Anybody that'd like to volunteer for that, you're welcome. The water's fine up here. If you have a Bible and you find it helpful, please turn in it to Luke chapter 22. This is where we're going to be spending our time today. Thank you so much. Two things. One, is the temperature all right for everybody? Is it warm, hot? Everybody's good. Okay, the second thing is, on our refrigerator, there's a list. And if you are back there and you're getting something from the refrigerator and you close the door and you gaze at the list and you see some things that aren't crossed out, those are things that might be necessary to be put in the refrigerator, so anybody can assign themselves that task. And if it's a whatever it is, and just grab it and bring it and throw it in there, and we appreciate that. So we in our culture, there are lots of sayings that we have, and those sayings come from lots of places. And one of them we have in our culture to this day. We refer to a person as a Judas, somebody who betrays someone, and especially betrays them with a good action. We speak of also the Judas kiss. I've heard that phrase used before. And this is where a person would do something of an affectionate nature and then use that to hurt somebody in that very way. Let's take a look at this text, and I'll begin reading in Luke chapter 22, verse 39. Jesus went out and made his way as he customarily did to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he came to the place, he said to them, "Pray that you'll not fall into temptation." He went away from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you're willing, take this cup away from me, but not my will, but yours be done." Then an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened him, and in his anguish he prayed even more fervently. His sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground, and when he got up from prayer, his disciples and came to them, he found them asleep, exhausted from grief. So he said to them, "Why are you sleeping? Get up and pray that you'll not fall into temptation." While Jesus was still speaking, a crowd came. And the man named Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He walked up to Jesus to give him a kiss. Jesus said to him, "Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" When those around Jesus saw what was about to happen, the other disciples, they said, "Lord, should we use our swords?" And one of them struck the high priest's slave, cutting off his right ear. Jesus said, "Enough of this." And he touched the man's ear and he healed him. Then Jesus said to the priests, the officers of the temple guard, and the elders that had come out to meet Jesus, "Have you come out with swords and clubs like you're trying to capture an outlaw? Day after day when I was with you in the temple courts, you did not arrest me, but this is your hour, and the power of darkness is yours." She's okay. It's okay. All right, in this moment, Jesus is praying, and he's totally aware of everything that's going to happen. He knows what's coming. This betrayal of Judas is not a shock to him. He knows that Judas is going to do this. Judas is thinking, and the leaders that hired Judas to do this are thinking, well, we found a way. Now we've got Jesus, we've got him away from the crowds, we can arrest him. And Judas leads the group, the Sanhedrists, and the temple guard right to Jesus, and then walks up to him in that Semitic fashion that you see on TV still to this day, where two Semitic people will grab each other by the shoulders and lean forward and give each other a kiss on the opposite cheek. Same thing that happens today. The temple guard is with them here. It's called the Sagon. So they've brought a formidable group of people here to arrest Jesus. And of course the kiss is the signal, right? When you see me walk up and kiss this person, that's the guy you want to arrest, which means a lot of the temple guard did not know who they were coming to get. How that happens, I don't know. You have to realize Jesus just walked from place to place throughout Palestine, and he preached, and not everybody saw him. So there were lots of people who had no idea what he looked like. How are we going to know who it is we're supposed to arrest? It's interesting that Judas's name means praise God. That's what his name means. The term Iscariot is actually a derivative of Kerioth, which is a town. So it's Judas of Kerioth. That's what his name is. A lot of people were named that way in this time in history. And people's names all had a meaning. If you were Jewish and you were given a name, it wasn't just a name. It meant something. And Judas's name means praise God. It actually means in Hebrew, praise Yahweh. Judas, one of the 12. One of the selected followers of Jesus who's been traveling with him these 3.5 years. He's the one who was given charge over the money. He kept the money. He was the treasurer for the group. And he was known by the disciples to be a thief. Now you have to realize when Luke writes this gospel, he's interviewed somebody. One of the 12 perhaps, probably. And they're informing Luke of the fact that they knew that Judas was robbing from the bag, the money bag. I wonder when they discovered that. I wonder how long they walked with him and just put up with that, the fact that Judas was taking money out of the bag and using it for himself. How long did it take for them to report it? It reminds me of when I went to Maryland and I lied to that band so that I could have that guitar gig that I was a believer. I said, oh yeah, I'm a believer. And they gave me the guitar gig. I wonder how long. They never said to me, we knew all along, or we knew after 3 months, or any of that. I thought I had them faked out. I was pretending to pray, Rip, would you pray for our meal today? And I'd say, sure. And I didn't believe any of it. I wonder how long it was that they went along with me just to humor me, or because they liked me or loved me. And then, of course, I became a believer because of it. But they've brought, the temple guard has brought the SWAT team to come get Jesus. This is not just a few people. This is a large contingent, swords, shields, chains, whatever they've brought. They're coming to get him, and they're coming like they're getting somebody who's dangerous here. That's why Jesus is so surprised. Why are you bringing all these people? I've been with you every day. You've seen me. You could have gotten me at any point. These people are blind to their own thinking. They are blind. This is the most remarkable thing about these people to me. These people that come to arrest Jesus are completely blind, and yet they're very strong in their own thoughts. They think they're doing a righteous thing. They think they are doing God's work to come get this Palestinian rabble-rouser. We need to get him. We need to arrest him. We need to stop him. Otherwise, God's going to judge our nation once again, just like he did with Babylon. So we got to stop this guy. That's their thinking. But look at how they do this. They come at night, which was illegal. You were never to arrest somebody in the Jewish culture at night. They hire somebody to accuse Jesus. Judas was paid to do this. That's illegal. So and they're coming after Jesus like he's a robber. So there's all this hypocrisy tied up, which tells me that they are really strong in their thinking and blind to God. C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, you may have never read it. I may be the only one in the room who has. I don't know, Tyler, if you've read it, okay. That Hideous Strength is the last of the 3 books. And that hideous strength is just that. It is a power that is over people such that they cannot see God in any way. They're completely blind to God, and they are totally convinced of the rightness of what they think and what they think about. Totally reliant upon their own resources, their own intelligence, all of that. And these people that come to arrest Jesus this night, that's exactly how they are. They are completely convinced they're right. They're completely reliant on their own resources. This is so fascinating to me. A person can go through their whole life from the time they're young all the way until they leave this world as an aged person. And they can be blind to God. And God, after a certain point, he'll poke us all along the way. But at a certain point, he just says, if that's the way you want it, go ahead. That's a frightening thing to think about. That God would just say, go ahead. If this is the way you want it to be, you've got what you want. God gives us what we want. That's frightening to me. The disciples, they're just terrified. This moment is a total shock to them. They don't see any of this coming. And so they forget God altogether. They just forget. who it is they're serving, who it is they're walking with, whip out their swords. Isn't that just like life, really? I mean, things come into our lives, they take us off our game. I look at what's going on in the world right now, and it's taken me off my game. I can't speak for anybody else in here. But I told Becky, she and I have been talking about this for several days. I don't like it, the fact that everything just seems disrupted right now. Nothing's stable. What's going to happen tomorrow, we don't know. I don't like that. I don't like life like that. I like to know what tomorrow is. I liked it when the stock market was just doing like this, because I thought we're doing good here in this country. And now a germ, something nobody can even see with their naked eye, is disrupting all of that, the whole world. And people are scurrying in every direction except toward God. It's like and we're like that, aren't we? I am, I'll say it for myself. When things happen to me that I'm busy, I'm immersed in my life, I'm thinking about things, I'm trying my best to do right things, and something really disruptive happens, I forget all about the fact that I'm a friend of the maker of the universe. Just forget it. And I start struggling with all of these things around me. I forget that I can ask Him and trust Him. I forget all of that. Well, the disciples forgot that too. When we get immersed in stuff like that in life, isn't it funny how we can get steered so far off that we'll wind up in places that if Jesus were to walk into the room, we would be very embarrassed to find Him in the room, watching. Very embarrassed. It's like in a moment of forgetfulness of God, we just become disorganized and terrified and find ourselves doing things that if He walked up on us, we would be ashamed. I wonder what God's perspective is on that weakness that we have. I wonder what He thinks about that. One of the things that strikes me about this is, though, Jesus is just totally serene. You don't see anything here of Jesus being all excited and foamed up about any of these things, except when the swords get whipped out, and it's said in the other gospel that Peter cuts the ear of the slave off, even gives the slave's name. And Jesus says, enough of this. I'm sure He didn't say that in a totally calm, serene fashion. But these people are coming to judge Jesus, and it just comes across to me as I read this that Jesus is judging them. I mean, He is so, what are you doing coming with all these swords and clubs like you're coming for somebody who's dangerous? I've been with you for 3.5 years. You could have arrested me any time. What are you doing here like this tonight? These people who have come to arrest Jesus are just pawns in all of this. They really are. They are pawns in this. They don't know anything about the significance of what they're doing. The disciples don't know about the significance of what's happening. I wonder what's going on in Satan's realm when this happens. I wonder if they're, bumping fists and there's a big celebration going on because now we've got him. We've got him. So much of this is illegal. Jews were not supposed to do anything like this at night. They hired the accuser, Judas. That was illegal. There was no normal jurisprudence. Jesus doesn't get to face his accusers here. It's like a political arrest. It is a political arrest. In our world right now, there are countries where if you're in that country and you say something against the government, like North Korea, they'll come get you and your whole family and you'll just be taken away. You'll never see each other again. You don't know what happened. Where did Dad go? Where did Mom go? Where did the children go? Nobody knows. They must have said something the government didn't like. And Jesus is saying things that the Jewish government does not like. And so they come and make a political arrest here. But Jesus has just serenely surrendered himself to the things as they unfold. He's got the courage of commitment. He knows where all this is going. He also knows the need that humanity has as a whole. And he has surrendered himself to that need completely. Doesn't retaliate, doesn't resist. I don't know, I was reading an article this week about the profile of these people that come into schools or in a public place and shoot the place up. They've profiled these folks now. I don't know if you remember back in the 70s, in Boston is where it started. The FBI started a profiling group in Boston. There was a certain FBI agent that thought, there's got to be a way to figure out what these people are like so that we could maybe identify them before they do this stuff. Well, they profiled school shooters all through the 80s and 90s and up till today. And they said, what are they like? Well, the first thing they are is they have a tremendous sense of victimhood about themselves. They just feel like the whole world's out to get them, and they're victims. And they're consumed with their own need to not be a victim, so what do? They go shoot places up so that they can have power over other people. That's the way they think. Look at the contrast with Jesus here. He's no victim at all. He is in utter control of all of these who come to arrest him. He is judging them. So here's the lesson for you and me who live in this world today, right now. There is only one way for anybody in this room, me included, that we can really have a peace in this world. Only one way to have peace. We all want it. We find ways to supply it, right? Maybe it's a really great job, or it's money, or it's acquisitions, property, stuff that we really like. You name it. We find ways to scratch that itch because we want that peace. If I've got enough money in my bank account, I've got peace, right? Or if I got a big enough piece of property, I got peace. Or if I know how to be self-sufficient, I got peace. Which reminds me, if the apocalypse comes because of the COVID virus, all you guys in here who know how to really hunt and fish really well, don't forget rib, because my forest is Kroger. That's where I find all of the animals and things like that I'm going to eat. My garden is Kroger. But if we're really going to find peace, there's only one place we're going to find it, and that is that we surrender to God's will. Now, that sounds so simple, you're probably thinking to yourself, thanks, Rip. That's very helpful. Like we didn't know that already. I think there's something deeper than that. Everybody in this room, myself included, has a desire about the way life is supposed to go. We all do. We're all thinking, I've got a picture of where I want life to go. And we do stuff to make that picture happen, right? Whatever it takes to make that picture happen. I wonder, and I don't know this, I'll have to ask when I get there, I wonder what Jesus was thinking here. 3.5 years of walking the earth, I mean, he's a different kind of guy, that's for sure. But what was he thinking about where he thought his life was supposed to go? I mean, think about it. Jesus is a rabbi. And in the Jewish tradition, the rabbi would marry, have children. They had temple proceeds coming to them. They lived well. They were respected. Jesus could have had all of that. But he turned a corner in the garden that day. A lot of stuff happens in gardens in the Bible. He turned a corner that day and surrendered his will to God. So you might be looking at me today and saying, okay, Rip, that sounds really good. I like the feel of that I want to surrender to God's will. So how do I do it? Do I sign up on something? Do I fill out a sheet of paper? Let's stop and think for just a minute. If you're sitting here like we're all in this room right now and Jesus were to open the door and walk in, I mean physically, where everybody could see him, and he would say, Rip, would you just go out there and take a seat next to your wife? I got a few things I want to say. And he comes up here and he asks everybody, me included, all of us in this room, he says, do you want to do God's will? What person in this room is going to say, I really don't. I'd rather not. Really? I mean, any of us would say, oh, yes, we definitely want to do your will. Well, what then if we said that and then he showed us what was entailed? Showed us the whole stream of our life from that moment throughout to the end of our life and said, if you want to do my will, this is what it will look like. Would we say yes then? It's probably a really good thing that we can't see the future. It's probably a really good thing. Not that it's going to be bad necessarily. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying we have a picture where we think life should go, but it may not be the picture that God has. And if we're going to find peace in this world, our picture needs to be His picture. That's all. I'll tell you, there's only one way to find out what God's will is for your life and for mine. I can't do it for anybody. Somebody comes up to me and says, Rip, what do you think God's will is for my life? And I'm going to say, I don't know. I barely know what it is for my own. How can I know what yours is? I don't know. And it's to go to God, you and God, me and God, and pray and ask Him for His will. And I guarantee you, if you really mean that, the Bible says if you draw near to God, He's going to draw near to you. He will give you His will, whatever that will is. But you know, it's a tenuous thing to pray, because what we're doing is we're taking that little slice of the world that we call our life. I mean, I say that, don't you? My life is doing this, my life is doing that. We all speak that way. But really, better to say the life that God has given me this day to live. But I'll tell you, when we're in God's will, I can't tell you how many missionaries I've spoken with, and I know several of them in my life, suffering. I mean, they're in places that I wouldn't want to live like they live. I think about Melanie right now working in the tent. I don't want to work in a tent. But these people will say, without any hesitation, they know they're in God's will, and they say to them, to you or to me, to anybody who asks, anything else would just be a waste of time. I would feel like I was wasting my time. There is no fulfillment like being in God's will. And if we want it, God will bring it. But you got to ask Him, and you got to want it. I don't know where everybody is today, but if I've said anything about which you've got a question, you want to pray with me, want to speak with me, I'll stay as long as you